Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to view this little demonstration of the DLGF Capital Improvement Plan template. We will not be reviewing the statute that requires this. We won't be reviewing the memo itself. This is just a quick walkthrough on how to use the template, how it functions. It is not meant to be a substitute for reading the law, the memos. Make sure that you thoroughly understand all that. In addition to the memo as well, we highly encourage you to work with your township association to ensure that things are done correctly and in compliance with statute. All right, so let's get started. The very first thing you're going to try to do is try to click on your county, and it's not going to work. Not off to a good start here, but it's okay. I will walk you through it all. So anytime you download an Excel template or an Excel file from any place on the web, it won't let you edit it. It's going to be in read-only. But what you'll see across the top is this kind of yellowish tan bar with a button that says Enable Editing. So you'll click there. Then from there, you should be able to select your county. I'm just going to choose the first one here. We've got Adams County. And then with the township name, we're just going to choose the very first one. Now, I will say that I'm looking for Blue Creek. However, we didn't see that, so you might need to scroll up with this little toolbar, little scroll bar, in order to see that. Now, with the plan adoption date, we can see that the deadline here is September 30th. I highly recommend nobody wait till the last minute just because things can happen. So what we're going to do is I want to estimate this to be September 1st, 2025. Yeah, everything, all the amounts here will be completely fictitious and made up, maybe nonsense, but I'm just trying to get you comfortable with how to use the template itself. All right, so here we can see the funds that are referred to as the unrestricted funds. There's two different groups of funds that we're going to be working with. There's the unrestricted, then separately, there's the capital improvement funds. Generally speaking, the unrestricted funds will be rainy day and general. But there might be other unrestricted funds, such as a gift fund possibly that has no restrictions on it. There could be lots of other ones. But I'd say for large majority of townships, it may just be rainy day in general. But read through that memo to understand that more to see if you have any other ones. Additionally, there will be capital improvement funds, which have a broader definition, which would include your fire funds, your parks fund, your cemetery funds, other ones as well. Make sure you read the memo, read the statute to make sure you understand what those are. But in this case, that 30% transfer of the adjusted ending 2026 cash balances, that would just be for those unrestricted funds. And that's the transfer to the Township Road and Infrastructure Funds. So the main tab is completed. We'll go back to it later so we can see what these amounts fill out to be. But we see some orange, we see some blue. If we go to the Notes tab, that can be helpful. This will tell us that these light blue fields show us that there's data entry needed if it applies. The orange one indicates that there's some total pulling in from somewhere, and then the other colors simply mean that there's no data entry required. So the main tab is complete for now. We'll try to come back to that one at the end so we can see the estimated transfers. But now we're on to the unrestricted funds. Again, remember, this is mostly going to be the rainy day and general fund, unless you have other funds with no restrictions on the expenditures. So for the unrestricted fund and rainy day, you can see that the county, the township name, and the fund description has pulled over. And we need the estimated ending 2026 cash balance, including investments. And there's a little note here. It says, can be found on line 18 of the Gateway Budget Form 4B. So I'm pretending I've already done that Form 4B, and the amount was, let's say, $30,000. Now, there's other adjustments that can further reduce that cash balance outside of what's on Form 4B. So the first one would be committed to a township's capital improvement plan. Again, this excludes anything included in the 2026 budget, including the estimate of the ending cash. So this one's orange. This is going to pull in from the capital improvement plan expenditure tab that we'll see later on in this workbook. if this is for the rainy day fund and for any year after 2026, it'll total those into this field. So you will kind of be coming back to this one once we're done to make sure to review the estimated ending cash balance that's adjusted and the estimated 30% transfer as well. And then you might have other adjustments, maybe encumbrance due to contract or purchase order. Now, this would not include any encumbrances that you have between 24 and 25, because that should have been entered on your current year financial worksheet and already included on there. But I will also say the encumbrances are fairly rare, especially for townships. That if you have any third-party restrictions or restrictions for state or federal laws or rules, or any restrictions due to contractual obligations, you can enter those here as well. That'll further reduce those cash balances. Okay, so in this case, we've got $30,000 in cash. We haven't done the capital improvement plan expenditures yet, but we do have some expenses there that could further reduce this. But for now, 30% of $30,000 is $9,000. Now, it's possible that we might have some additional notes or narrative about fund balances that we want to include in this plan to kind of help tell our story. You can add those down here, but that's how you complete this page. So let's go on and do the general fund as well. So let's say I have $100,000 in cash projected at the end of 2026 for our general fund. Okay, we've not done the capital improvement plan expenditure tab yet, so this is 0. But if we do have any expenses for the general fund after 2026, those we pulled in and further reduce that cash balance. But let's say we don't have any encumbrances or other adjustments that would reduce this further besides those capital improvement plan expenditures, which we'll work on in just a minute or two. So in this case, 30% of 100,000 is $30,000. This is where you can add a note or narrative about this if you'd like to. Now, let's say these unrestricted funds, these are very, very rare, but it's possible some townships might have them. So let's work through one as an example. So here, the very first field we see in blue says fund description. Unrestricted fund number 3, override with fund name as applicable. So I'm going to say that I have a gift fund. I'm going to name this gift fund. Nice and easy. I'm going to say that somebody gave the township $10,000. Okay. Now, sometimes you have a gift that says, hey, I want this gift to be used for the cemetery only. That would make this a restricted fund, or at least those funds to be restricted. In this example, this is $10,000 given to the township where there are no strings attached. It's for any legal purpose that the township wants to use it for. So that's an example of an unrestricted fund. So you might want to do a little bit of research on how your gift fund, if applicable, got those funds and if there were any restrictions on it. Now, again, we haven't done the capital improvement plan quite yet. As far as the expenditure tab, and let's say we don't have encumbrances or other restrictions that would further reduce that. All right, so we can skip past 4 and 5 because I don't have any unrestricted funds for the example besides that gift fund that we just made up. So let's take a look at the CIP Capital Improvement Plan Expense tab. All right, so this is where you need to include any proposed capital improvement projects for at least the following 3 years. So there's a minimum of 3 years, but there is no maximum. So in this case, let's say for 2026, in the rainy day fund, we are buying some equipment. And let's say that these are hoses. Let's say we're going to pay, let's say $5,000. All right, and let's say for 2027, for the rainy day fund, we're going to buy some more equipment. And let's call this air packs. Let's say this is $10,000. Now let's say that these are all the capital expenditures we had planned for the rainy day fund. We have $5,000 for 26 and $10,000 in 2027. That $5,000 in 26 should already be accounted for in that ending cash balance for 2026 that we entered, that $30,000 of cash. This $10,000 is not included in that. So let's go back and take a look at unrestricted rainy day. So again, remember, $10,000 is after 2026. So you can see we've got $30,000 in cash estimated at the end of 2026 that we pulled off the Form 4B on line 18. And then the workbook calculated that $10,000 as an expense committed to the township's capital improvement plan that was not part of that ending 26 cash balance. So that's how this tab works. That's how that field works. Now let's say that we're going to work on the, say for 2027, we've saved up for a long time. And for the fire fund, we're going to buy some equipment. Let's say we're going to buy a pumper truck. And I don't know, let's say it was $300,000. Entirely made up numbers. May make sense, may not. But we've got a truck that we're buying for $300,000 in Township Fire and EMS. Now, you're not going to see this in any of these funds because these funds help to calculate that 30% transfer of the adjusted ending 2026 cash balance. And the Fire and EMS fund is not an unrestricted fund. It's restricted for fire and EMS type purposes. It's not unrestricted. So as a result, it won't go anywhere on these other blue tabs, but you're still required by statute to include these. All right, so that's how this works. There's a lot of room here, so you can add a lot of different expenses. Again, this has to be for at least 3 years. There's no maximum on the number of years that you include. All right, let's go to the Capital Improvement Plan Revenue tab. In this case, we see Select 1, and just like the Capital Improvement Plan Revenue and Expense tab, both of these are very similar. What we're going to do here is this will be for all the capital improvement funds. Generally speaking, these will be all those certified funds except for township assistance and possibly debt service as well. So in this case, we've got rainy day, and you can see there's no property tax, local income tax, excise, FIT, or other revenues in 2025. And let's say we're not projecting any revenues coming into it for the next 3 years. So we'll leave these as 0. We're just spending down those cash reserves. Now we also have the fire fund. So let me go to Township Fire and EMS because we did have some expenses planned for these. So here are the estimates for 2025 for property taxes, and then also for excise, and FIT combined. Now, these are not the estimates for all revenues to be received for this fund. This would be for those revenues that are estimated to be collected within these years that will be set aside and reserved for these capital improvement expenditures, these capital improvement projects. So in this case, let's say that we're going to reserve, so we think we're going to get, let's say, $9,000 in property taxes for the fire fund, and we're going to try to set aside $7,000 of that for a future capital expense. And then for 2027, let's say we think we're going to do another $7,000 and then another $7,000. Now, if you think you're going to get some local income tax or some other revenues, you can include those estimates as well. And one thing I want to kind of stress here is this is not the total revenues estimated for each of these years. It's the revenues for these years that you're going to allocate and kind of set aside for these capital projects in the future. Okay? That's how we complete the Capital Improvement Plan Revenue tab. Alrighty. And lastly, we have the resolution example. But let's go back to that main page first. So you can see that this has the rainy day fund, the general fund, and the gift fund. And we have the adjusted January 1st, 2027 cash balance, which is really the adjusted December 31st, 2026 cash balance. And then the estimated funds available or eligible for transfer, which is 30% of these adjusted cash balances. Okay, so the last thing we have here is the resolution example. So we don't have a prescribed template, but I know that we probably get some questions on, okay, what should it say? And we're not going to prescribe anything. However, here's an example of what we might see for a township's resolution adopting the capital improvement plan. Now, I cannot stress enough that this has to be adopted and dated no later than September 30th of 2025 in order to get property taxes for all the eligible property tax funds. Now, with that being said, you don't have to have it submitted to us by September 30th. If you're adopted on the 30th, it takes you a couple days to submit that to us. That's fine. But what we will do is we will make sure that we have the completed plan and copy of the signed resolution that is dated by September 30th. Now, in order to submit this, what you'll do is you will log into Gateway, go to Budgets, click on your township, and that's where you'll see Submit Signed Form 4 and other documents. Once you're on there, this is where you can upload this document. I believe there's a drop-down option that says Capital Improvement Plan. Okay. Now, with that, you have two really good resources at your disposal. You have your DLGF budget filter app. Unfortunately, we will be in workshops between July and August, so that makes it a little bit busier. But also during your workshop, feel free to let us know if you have any questions. We may not be able to answer a lot of those specific legal advice questions, but that's where either your attorney, your bond, or your counsel, or maybe even the township association should be able to help with. Okay, and that was the second big resource you have. In addition to the memos issued by the DLGF and the code citations we have here, definitely feel free to work with your township association. They're there to help you. It is our goal that every township adopts this plan by September 30th, by any means necessary, by thoroughly understanding statute completely yourself, without any help, reading our memos to understand more and looking at statute, working with their township association. There are lots of different avenues to do this. We want to make sure that no township fails to adopt one by September 30th. And because life can happen, surprises can happen, please don't wait until September 30th. Give yourself some room just in case things happen. Okay. I hope this little demo was helpful. Again, nothing here was financial or legal advice. Use these code citations at the very beginning to make sure you understand things more thoroughly. Review the memo, and I hope you have a great day. And I will say one last thing. Once you adopt your capital improvement plan, I would highly recommend that you reach out to the surrounding townships around you and make sure that they've done it too, because we don't want anybody to fail this requirement. All right. Thank you, guys.